Hello, good evening, everyone, our guests, professors, and students. In today's episode of ArchiDesign Talks, we have Özgür Mutlu Öz from Arçelik Group, and the moderator of today's talk will be Renk Hoca, Renk Dimli Oraklı Bel. So I'm leaving the word to you, Renk Hocam.
Thank you, Salih Hocam. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ArchiDesign Talk. I'd like to begin with short bio of Özgür, if it's possible. So he graduated from Industrial Design Department of METÜ at 2003 and got involved in Arçelik Group. Since then, he is working a part of Arçelik Group as a product designer. He participated in design projects of white goods such as washing machines, dryers, dishwashers, refrigerators, etc. as a team leader, and managed the design projects of consumer electronics products for Grundig. While conducting his master's degree in Istanbul Technical University Department of Industrial Design, he focused on experience design, product user interactions, and interface design, and carried on display and interface design projects within Arçelik Group. According to today, he is the head of the UX UI Department of Arçelik Group and responsible for user experience and user interface studies of the entire product range and mobile applications of those products, of all the marketing regions such as North America, Europe, Middle East, Africa, Russia, and Asia Pacific, whole world, I guess, that's the whole world. So besides, many of the projects conducted within the company are awarded with IF, Red Dot, Wood Design, Design Turkey, CES Innovation, and German Design Awards, along with Koç and Arçelik Awards. So we are very pleased to have such an experienced and accomplished designer with us today, since most especially lately our third and fourth grade students are working on UX UI projects within the design studio. I hope this talk will be very beneficial for them. And I guess this is enough words from me, and I'll let you to take the microphone. Özgür, please. Thank you again for being here with us.
Thank you for this warm welcome also and invitation. It's really great to be with you today. I prepared a presentation, but please do not hesitate to interrupt and ask any questions whenever you want. I will try to now share the screen, just a moment. Is it okay? No, just a moment.
We can see the screen, but not the presentation, but I hope it's okay.
You can see this as well, right?
Yes.
Yes, we talked about this. Anyway, I will try again.
Yes, now it's done.
Okay, perfect. So, I will talk about multidisciplinary design processes, but this will be somehow what I am dealing in Arçelik as well. And when I look at the title, who is a designer? A designer is an industrial designer, interaction designer, usability expert, user interface designer, user experience designer, content writer, strategist, researcher. All these titles and maybe many more could be assigned to a designer. And for me, for example, I graduated from METÜ as an industrial designer. And after graduation, I started to work at Arçelik Group as a junior industrial designer and participated in many projects. Then at that time, it was only web design maybe, or interaction design. And we talk about usability. And as the products, we were talking about ergonomics, but usability. What about the interaction? And what about the perception of the user and their actions to the device and what the device is giving a feedback? Then all around the world, these disciplines evolved, and we call user interface designer, user experience designer, and you may already saw many definitions about all these titles. So I cannot divide anyone from other if we are talking about a product. When we talk about product, especially if you look at the product range of Arçelik, we are at home and using all these products to solve our problems, or we are hiring these products to serve for us, cleaning the floor, cooking, washing our clothes, etc., etc. So these products are touching our lives. But I want to explain this in a different way. I like hamburger, but we don't see a hamburger yet. We see products, different products. My hamburger is maybe leaving home after I wake up in the morning. So we have to concentrate on this. But this is also not enough. This hamburger could be very delicious, but on the other hand, the experience is while eating it, while sharing it, what you feel, what you do, and what this makes you to do your next movement or your next mood, let's say. So as designers, we all have to concentrate on this experience side. Whatever we are dealing with, we may be 3D modeling an idea, we may be just sketching an idea, or we may just try to explain an animation, user interface animation to a engineer, coder. We should always concentrate and focus on this experience side, because people are paying for it. So when we look at our case in Arçelik, let's say, we are, as I said, designing the products and experiences. These products lets the experience. But there are many factors that affect our designs. One of them is our brands. One of them is the product specs. Another one is the trends, the technology, lifestyle, and user needs, and also environment as well. So what is all this about? This is value for the user. We try to focus on the value that our service, that our product will create for the user. I will talk in detail about these aspects. The first one is the user. Our users, mainly human being, is so complex. They may not say what they think. They may not do what they says, and they may not say what they do, may not believe what he or she says. So really complex organism. Huh? We also, for example, when you have a questionnaire asked, you have to fill a questionnaire. I believe you also feel that, okay, I said twice a week, but I realized that I do it more frequently or less frequently. So while talking, I do this, but maybe we are not doing that. Or sometimes we are ashamed. We don't want to, especially if it is a like a questionnaire, we don't want to be one that's giving our all information. So in order to understand these needs, in order to understand this organism as designers, we have to observe our users. But how? One of them is prototype your idea, test it with users, and do the design developments, and then create another prototype. Many of us, I believe you also do it. Prototype the idea and then test it on us or test it on your friends, with your friends. It sometimes works, but we have to concentrate on who is our target group. For example, now we have Generation Z, whose perception is very different compared to other generations. Or we have elderly population, their taste, their needs are really different. So it is sometimes possible to put yourself as the user. In our case, for example, when we are working on a cooking product, we as team go to a kitchen and with a given duty, we cook by ourselves, and we observe ourselves what we needed, how we used recipes, how we used the devices. Besides that, for example, as designers, we have to share our ideas and talk on them, because different ideas creates another idea, and this goes on. So as designer, you shouldn't work alone many times. You have to share your ideas and want someone to put on it. There are really efficient methodologies on these studies, but working together with different, if possible, designers, but not it's not a must, from different perspectives, different cultural aspects, working with many people and talking with them about your idea is really critical. Another thing is the experts. Some people are experts on some topics, for example, a cook. So talking with a chef about their processes, about how they are feeling while using an existing product, or what they need and what they do while cooking, observing them, asking questions to them is really important. And consumer insight evaluations, focus group studies, talking with people, but again, yeah, human being is so complicated. So understanding them is not easy job. So, for example, when we are working on an oven interface and look at the evolution, we have digital displays, now bigger digital displays, now TFT colorful screens, bigger ones and more functions, etc. But what's next? So in order to define what's next, you have to go to your target group and research, observe about the needs. For example, when we talk with people and observe them, how they use the ovens, they are using the same 3 or maximum 4 programs on an oven. And the rest, for example, if I ask them, how many programs do you have in your oven? I have 13 programs, I have 15 programs. This is valid for the dishwasher as well. Dishwasher is only one program. Many users using only one program. Maybe sometimes they need the fast program, but daily program or eco program is the only one program they are using. So, but when they go to a shop to buy a dishwasher, if there is another model giving 5 more programs, why not I should choose it? Selecting that might be attractive for them. So as a designer, this is a problem definition, for example. Their buying habits and usage habits are different. So making a hierarchy on the program sequence or making the design according to this observation, for example, would lead you to a different product. For the observation, in our case, for example, it's not easy to prototype everything like a finished product. You can start very primitive way. I mean, you can just sketch on papers and ask the users about your idea. Or in this case, for example, we have the interface, which is interactive on an iPad screen, but it looks like a washing machine screen. And on the side, the user have the washing machine. So we simulate this. Or we can do some tests with the users in our labs as well, with real products, in order to understand their feelings. But I will skip this one. But the most important thing is observing the users in the real environment, because none of the lab environment would not represent the real situation. In the real world, we have messy hands. We tend to not to harm anything in our kitchen. We are wearing different clothes, maybe. So where do we put the salt is also important. Everything could affect our interaction with the device, means that it affects our experience. So sometimes you can start with low fidelity prototypes, or you can go to high fidelity prototypes, which are looking as a real product, like a real product. Our aim is very simple. We try to measure, we try to observe, and after observing, we do in-depth interviews to ask what is the motivation, what was the reason. So while doing this, for example, this was from one of our tests. We test one of our concept UI with two different existing products for the oven and also the washing machine. But as I said, the methodologies are different. So in this case, for example, we used neuro eye tracking. It's not only eye tracking, as you may already heard about it, where the user is looking and heat maps, etc. This is also collecting the data and collecting the different sensorial data. We are getting the EEG data and try to capture the emotional chase during that usage, and then look at if the user is feeling happy or stressed, and then we explore the motivation. After this sequence, we start an interview with the users and understand why they feel stressed, for example. If the emotional impact curve is rising or decreasing, so what could be the reason for that? For example, we just see an emotional impact curve decreasing with one user, and we asked her what happened here. She said that, okay, when I was just going through the menu, I saw a picture of a meal, and I am hungry, so I feel very upset that at that time. Yeah, it's really important that a meal photograph could make the user to feel like that. So these are all, for example, I just found this image from the internet. I don't know the brands, I don't know anything about them, but as a TV remote, all are looking designed objects, okay, but lots of controls. How is it used in the real life? Can you imagine? This is another image from the internet. So your target group could understand this or this, what they need. So the important thing for a designer is concentrate on the needs, not the wants. If you ask people about what they want, they will say many, many things. But observing and understanding the needs is much more crucial for a designer to define the design problem to be solved. In this case, for example, this may be a remote, for example, I can remember in my childhood, I was asked by our neighbors to go their home and fix the TV channels that they already, for example, lost. Probably some of us, many of us, did this as well. Because at that time, the digitalization started, but as I said, the usability, the interaction design, they were not that popular. So technology and the capability of the devices was priority. So having the menu, but without any user research, without any test, there were many user interfaces. So we just faced these things. And for example, even in pandemic, for example, digital commerce issue boomed. Everyone understand that, okay, digitalization and online marketing is important, so my website should be better. They understand that the return on investment in the digital design, I mean, their interfaces on the online, really affect their sales. So, for example, in 2 years, recent years, the importance of a designer also understood at this sector as well. Another thing is about the users, their geography, position, and their culture. We have, for example, in Arçelik, our products are sold all over the world, maybe, but we are not selling the same product to every market, every geography. We have different habits, different cultures, and all these affect what the user is expecting from a device and what their need is actually. So this cultural difference is important. I will just show an example. This is a user interface of an induction hob. So when we did a user test, the users show this icon on the device, and it was the test was held in Turkey. So I asked, okay, when you saw this, what do you think? What do you think this is meaning, for example? And the user said that, I see the age. So this is hazır, ready in Turkish. So I can cook here. Okay. So actually, this icon is for hot surface. When you cook something, if there is a residual heat on the surface, many products are giving this signal to indicate that that area is hot. So be careful. Another one, for example, we have a refrigerator project, and it was for Chinese market. And they asked us, okay, we will be working on a special compartment for the rice, and this compartment will be activated with a button. So we need an icon to put on the button, activate the function, and deactivate it. Okay, can you work on a icon for that one? Okay, rice. In the Far East, rice could be a bowl and chopsticks. So we designed this icon, but then we have this email. This icon is for more cooked rice. For raw rice, may use others. The feeling will be more close to something like that. At that point, okay, we did something wrong. We didn't. Okay, we will recover. We didn't go in detail about what a rice meaning to a Far East at that time we asked, okay, in which packages these are sold, where they are sold, how often you buy these, how long you store these in the compartment, etc. We asked many more questions to understand the context and what's happening. Another aspect for the designer is the technology. And there are really fascinating technologies nowadays. As a designer, we should always follow these technologies, what is happening. But a technology could not drive a design. I mean, this technology should serve a design. I have this technology cone idea from an artist. He says that the technology cone envisioned to naturalized, and the technology is becoming more stable when they go to upside. So every technology try to go upside. What is the examples? For example, the envision technology could be a time machine. It's a visionary thing, but nothing done yet. Operational one, for example, producing red meat from a chemical waste or other waste. It's operationally okay, but we cannot reach these things easily yet. Applied the energy, nuclear power, it's applied, but not that wide again, because it's not, it has some defects. Accepted one could be any product that we are using, cellular phone, TVs, washing machines, they are all accepted. Maybe cellular phone is a bit vital nowadays, huh? This vital one, internet, for example. But when they become invisible, then we don't see them, and we have them in our everyday life, and we cannot get rid of them. Clock, for example. Time, clock. Yeah. And naturalized agriculture. So it is very old technology, and when you have it, okay, you have it. No way to go back. So technology is something good, but it should be invisible for the user to be accepted. We have the user needs. As I said, we have to concentrate on those needs, and we have the technology. And the experience is when they come together. Another thing is the data. Nowadays, every company is hunting for our data, right? They are asking for permissions to track us. But data is very dangerous without a research or observation. This is something that one of our friends, Bilgi Karan, used a couple of weeks ago in a seminar, rear gear paradox. This is important because the reverse gear, if you look at the data, the usage habits, it is used very, very few. But if because of that data, if you just take the reverse gear from a car, then it will be really useless. So be careful about data. Data talks many things, but when you just combine these findings with your observations, then it gets much more meaningful and much more easy to understand. Another thing a designer should think about is the brands. For example, as Arçelik, we have many brands acting in different geographies with different brand values. Some are high-end brands, some are entry segment brands. They are targeting different consumers. While designing something, knowing about your brand means that your brand values, and again, that means that your target group as the users is really important for a designer. When starting a project, asking for these things is, I mean, having a structured brief is really important. And as designers, our responsibility about environment is really, really crucial. We all understand every day that environment is really important, sustainability, and as designers, we are designing products for users. For example, you can be carbon neutral while manufacturing a product, but after your shipment, I mean, after buying, after a user bought your product and start using it, it may harm environment much more than what you tried to do while, for example, manufacturing it for zero carbon print. So it is not only recycled materials. It is not only recyclable materials. It's not only using all those environment-friendly materials. The journey is continuing while the user is using it in there also. So as the interaction user interface designers, we have that responsibility for the user. We should be guiding the user for the right program while they are washing their clothes, for example. Filling the washing machine with enough clothes is really important. If the user is filling it half every time, then it is loss of water, it is loss of detergent. If you are not able to understand that load level and adjust the water level, etc. Or, for example, in our observations, we face that the users may be putting the detergents to wrong compartments. Means that that detergent is doing nothing in terms of functionality. So guiding the user for the right usage, guiding the user for the right program at right time For example, having a time function to start the program at the late hours may be affecting our not only budget but also environment. So as designers, as I said, we have that responsibility and we should all act with that responsibility. And while doing something, don't forget to try it. This is, for example, a trial from our team as a new way of interaction while cooking. We didn't have this product on the market. We didn't go on with this product, but we showcased it in some of the fairs. But the thing we are doing is trying. We used new technologies here. We used new observations. Okay, how the users will feel it. For example, touching a glass of the glass of an oven. How do you feel? I mean, something is cooking inside, so it's hot, and the surface could be hot as well. So how the user will feel while touching this surface, for example, was something that we were trying to understand. And again, this was another concept project from our team. And this is, as I said, the technologies should be invisible. So this surface is a cooktop, actually, but you don't see a hob here. Let's see how it happens. Okay.
Actually, you were explaining something, but the video's voice is very high, so we can't really hear you. What?
Okay.
Well,
actually, it was the slide before my thank you slide, but I will talk about this product more. I mean, we have the cooking surface there, but we don't see a cook plate there. So when you put the pan in any place, I don't know if, let's try again. When you put the pan on, it detects the pan and heats only that area. Plus, for example, these devices, I mean, this one, for example, don't have a cord, electric cord. When you put it here, it just transfers the energy and runs. Let's see it. No, we can't see it. Okay.
I think I should search about it on the internet because there are movies of flux there. So it's a very ne denir? Inspiring system that you build up there.
Yes. So these are all I want to talk about today. But as I said, this is just a let's say just a cut from our topics that we are dealing. But please feel free to ask any questions, and we can just talk in detail about what you will be asking.
Okay, guys, dear students and dear professors, do you have any questions for us? Because I have. Let's.
Perfect.
Okay, let me see the people. Okay, Beyza. No, not Beyza. I need to find the first one. Elçin Hocam, you are the first, but I'm not giving the word to you. So I'll begin with Beyza, Hatice Beyza Çelikmen.
Yes, thank you so much for your great presentation. It was very enlightening. My question is, could you tell us a little bit about your experience moving on from industrial design to this kind of more specialized UX UI field, and what would you suggest to newly graduates who want to specialize in this area?
Actually, as I said, my background is also industrial design, and as an industrial designer, I cannot separate these topics from each other because when we have the design education, understanding the user, understanding the needs, and doing something according to these needs is common. So every designer is doing this. Architecture is doing this. So the basics are same. When we talk about, for example, industrial design, you have to much more focus on the production capabilities, the materials, maybe. And when we think about an user interface designer, actually this user interface designer, for example, in the sector now, we have only digital products. I mean the applications and the websites. But in our case, for example, we are also designing the user interface, but we are also defining how many buttons will there be also. I'm not stick to only one screen as a designer in such a company while designing products, for example. I can define the number of buttons, I can define the sizes of the buttons, the positions of the buttons, and the relationship between if there is a screen or not, for example. We work on, for example, a product that has only one LED on it. So with one LED, you have to show the user that if the device is working at that time, if there is something wrong, if it is, for example, charging or full of charge, whatever. So defining all these functions, or you have 5 buttons, but you have 8 functions to give the user. So how we will define it? I mean, we have to think about, okay, this will be a secondary function. So pressing this button 3 seconds will activate this function. So seeing the big screen, the big picture, and defining the flow is one part, and then designing it in a appealing way is another part. But they are all connected to each other. I mean, while designing the user interface of a washing machine, the angle of the panel is also important. The size of the knob is also important. So because we said multidisciplinary design, we have to be working closely with the industrial designer as the interaction designer about these topics, for example. And also graphic designer as well. I mean, if there is still enough room, enough area for the silk prints or what we will write for the button definition, for example. So now, if we can't just call a product, it is defining a experience, as we said at the beginning of the presentation. So the form of the product, the color of the product, the material of the product, the interactivity of the product, how the buzzer melody of the product, all these are affecting this experience. So it is not a one-person job, one-person show. It's a teamwork, and being a part of this teamwork as a designer is very important. But if you, for example, talk about the only digital products, let's say, again, there are researchers doing the research parts. And then there are information architectures. I mean, we call mainly in the sector user experience designers who are defining the flows, defining the information architecture, and then user interface designers who are doing the graphical part of the design, for example. But in my opinion, I cannot separate all these items, all these titles from each other, because at the end of the day, the user is using that product, and all the aspects of the product, all the features of the product is affecting this experience. So in which part you are in, whatever, it doesn't matter. You have to keep the focus on the user. And as the designer, as I said, knowing what are the needs and what are the capabilities of your colleague, I mean, as the industrial designer or as the interaction designer, graphic designer, knowing all their capabilities and what they need in order to do their job is really important. And you create that product together. Nowadays, when we talk about a product, as I said, it's not a one-person show anymore. It is a teamwork mainly. And you asked also advices to people that want to. Yeah. Actually, nowadays there are really good opportunities in the sector, in the market, that many companies are looking for talented designers. But as far as I know, we don't have a user interface design department or user experience design department yet. But some certificate programs or master degrees there are. But the basics are, as I said, same. So getting those idea from an industrial design education is really important, in my opinion, or not only industrial design, visual communication design departments also give that, even architecture. Yeah, I mean, the creativity and also putting the user in the center, all these disciplines. The basics are same, so having these basics and then focusing on what you are good at is really beneficial. I mean, as a designer, we don't need to sketch very well, maybe, nowadays, because, as I said, there are so many jobs that you can focus with your analytical thinking as well. Or you don't need to solve each problem, but your visual perspective, your creativity may be very good. So you can be part of that area in a product design process, for example. So getting the idea of designing and then understanding yourself, how and where you are capable at and you want to focus on, and then just dig into that area, I would advise.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the presentation.
Elif Yıldır, we can go with your question.
Hi, thank you for your presentation, by the way. I was wondering, what is the average working day for a UI UX designer?
In a week?
It can be a week.
I don't know. I mean, as a designer, you cannot just shut off the computer and do nothing without designing. I mean, it's part of you as a designer. You, wherever you go, whatever you do, you always look around and observe, actually. Or when you have a problem to be solved, it's not easy to just leave that problem and do something different. I believe it is the same in the education side as well. I mean, if you have a project to be finished, for example, next week, you cannot sleep without solving those problems, right? You are in math class now, okay, but you can still think about okay, what will I do? I mean, this design is a process. It's not just okay, I will do this, and finished. It's not something like that. So I cannot tell you that we have a fixed working hours. Of course, as Arçelik, we have all those things, but as a designer in your mind, it's not easy to define something like that. Sometimes when you come office as well, you cannot solve any problem. You cannot create something new. But sometimes when you are driving to home, you just come up with a new idea, and the next morning you try it, etc. So.
And my other question was, what are the biggest challenges you face because the technology increases day by day? So.
The most, I mean, one of the problem is about the mindsets that some companies or some people have. I mean, if we have that technology, some people think that, okay, we have to run with this technology to create something. I mean, we put the technology in the middle and try to find a way to define a product and sell it to the user. But as I said, as the designers, we have many responsibilities about the environment, about the user, their habits, etc. So creating everything because of that technology exists, or some competitors' benchmark is doing something. That's really a big problem for a designer.
Thank you.
So in order to, what do we do in those things? We have to, as designers, we have to, as we observe the users, we do the tests with the users, we have to create reports, and we have to talk people with that data. Yes, you are saying this, but according to all these tests, if we do this, we may fail, for example, or we should go this direction instead of this. So talking with all these test results is really important.
Thank you.
Actually, that was one of my questions that Elif mentioned, one and after. Because when I asked them to make user research and test the things that with the users, and I asked this, let's ask 100 person and search for the most popular answer. And they said, hocam işte, I don't have time, or at some point they are putting themselves in the state. But if they ask you, as Arçelik, as a designer that is working there for 20 years, you have all kinds of opportunities like the user test, focus groups, and the laboratories that you have. Maybe it will be great to give them a really simple thing, because when I say so, they don't believe me. Maybe from your mouth, it will be more efficient for them. So maybe you can just give advice to make user research and be that part of the process, very beginning part of the process, to be their process.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
shortcuts, let's say.
There is no shortcut, actually. I mean, as designers, we have to do these all observations. Otherwise, we try to solve the problems that people asked us to solve. I mean, our first thing should be defining the problem. Is it? I will try to give an example, but I mean, defining the problem will lead you to a new product. It will lead you to a right solution. Otherwise, you will create other problems, because you are not sure about what the problem is. Just someone asked you to solve this. But if you find out the problem with your observations, with your findings, that part is really important, creating the right problem to be solved. So in order to talk with people, as I said, talk with your friends. I mean, start from there. Talk with your family. Start from there. You can't be an elderly people unless you get to that age, right? Or I can't be a Generation Z right now. I can't understand that generation. So I should go to that those target groups and observe them, ask them, and while asking, I shouldn't ask yes or no questions. I mean, while interviewing the users, just try to keep yourself just know nothing at that point and ask everything like a child is asking. Okay, you do this, but why? You may know the reason, but ask again. You did this, why? Why do you think it's better? Do you think that it's maybe the user will say, okay, it was cold, so I did this. Where did you know that it's cold? I mean, try to understand all the perspective of that user by asking many questions. And prototyping, as I said, important. It is just some sketches on a paper maybe, but prototype something. Okay, you see this screen, what will you do? Okay, I press here. That's not a button, by the way. Oh, okay, then I press here. Okay, now you will have this screen. Put another paper on it. So this is the basic one, but now use the technology here that there are so many softwares that enables the designers to make interactive prototypes very rapidly. I mean, we are very lucky right now. We can just put the screens and then make the connections, bonds, and it will start a interactive prototype immediately. So use those abilities to prototype and test your ideas.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice that knowing that there is no shortcut. It is really nice. So Duygu Ertürk, I guess she gave up with her question. Begüm Yoldaş.
Hello. First of all, thank you for this beneficial presentation, actually. My question was, should the way of analysis need to vary according to the user group? Actually, as an example, my project aims to kids as a target group. That's why should we need to change the way of analyze according to this target group?
Yeah, as I said, while you are designing a product, you should define the target group as well. But if you are designing for a child, then your target group will be that. But don't think only the usage scenario there, for example. When we are talking about a child, probably we will also talking about a parent and how they define to have that, let's say, product, and will they buy it, will they get it, how they will be using it. So when you talk about a child, it's not easy to differentiate it from a parent as well. So, but doing these studies with the right target group is important. That's what I can say.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Ceval?
Hello.
Hi.
First of all, thank you so much for your presentation. As you said, Arçelik products are being used in many different countries by people from different backgrounds and cultures, ages, and especially with different needs. So how do you design your interfaces, the icons and products that address to each one of those different people? What do you most consider to reach out this range of acceptance, or can we reach fully?
No, it's not easy to cover all of the things in some cases. As I said, there are really some cultural tastes, the meanings of the colors, the meanings of the shapes may be differ. Or in some countries, for example, you have to write 3 different languages on the control panel. Unless you do it, you cannot sell your product because different languages are spoken in that country. So you have to put 3 languages at the same user interface panel. So you have to think local in some points. For example, in China, we have top loader washing machines, but in Turkey, in Europe, we don't see something like that. Or if you look an oven in an US market, it's totally different compared to a European market. So it's not easy to cover all of these things. For example, in Pakistan or in India, for example, the refrigerators has locks on the door. Why? Because the maid, they are not trusting, they don't trust the maid. So in order to keep their belongings, they just lock the refrigerator as well. This is a cultural thing, for example. And when you look at the colors, for example, they have flowers, colorful outlooks. So, for example, in Europe, we don't see those products that much. So it's not, we are not trying to catch every user with one product or with one brand as well. As you see, we have many different brands also. So the values and the target groups of those brands are also different.
Can I ask one more? You said that designers should communicate with each other, speak their minds and their ideas, but myself, I started my design education as online student, and I didn't communicate with my friends at my first year. And what would you suggest to us as online design education students?
It's really, it was really hard times for every one of us. I mean, we also, for example, went homes and didn't come to offices, and we hired new colleagues to the team, but we couldn't meet face to face for some time. Yeah, it was not easy, but on the other hand, as I said, there are really good softwares that you can do. I mean, putting your design to Instagram, to some design, for example, communities, and getting feedback about your design. For example, this was not common 2 years ago, right? But now people are doing this, for example. I know there are some difficulties, but this also created some more opportunities as well. So thanks that now it's getting normal, let's say. But the new normal, I mean, we have the opportunities of this digitalization right now, but still we can have face-to-face conversations with each other. So try to pick those positive ones and use it as much as you can.
Thank you so much.
Teşekkürler Şevval. Elçin Hocam, according to my notes, it's your turn.
Teşekkür ederim Renk Hocam. I would like to say something to the words of Şevval. Şevval, you created a platform in Instagram that hundreds of design students gathered there, and you have the chance to meet to each other through that platform. So actually, you are doing what you can do in the period of inconveniences, let me say. And as the designers, if we say that each difficulty that we encounter is a brief for us, that we have to think in the way of solving that problem. What can we learn from this difficulty so that we can convert it to a benefit? This is an attitude. You know that being a designer means that it's having a special mindset. This is the attitude that you can develop. And we learned a lot in the period of pandemic, how to use that condition as a benefit for us. So the brief was like that. You are given a screen. Only you will see your friends and colleagues as a video motion way, but you need to apply your designerly methodologies. That was the brief given to us. And I believe that we had successfully did our job and we learned a lot from that. That's what I wanted to add, and thanks Renk Hocam giving me the right to speak on what Şevval opened the discussion under that term. And I have my question for Özgür Bey as well. In the last part of your presentation, you showed us a video, and there I saw the people selecting something on the surface of a cooking utensil, a device.
Mm-hmm.
But what I saw is that they were not touching, but they were using their fingers. And it is really very interesting for me because touching means that you are in touch with the surface. And we always, as a human being, since it's a physical something, need to have a response of success. That is the feedback that we achieved touching that. If not a physically existing button, we need to make sure that we successfully did something to operate or make a change in the device that we are in interaction with. So did you have any return of usability with the quality of that action from the experiments or observations that you made about this new technology that you introduce?
Yes, of course. Thank you for asking this detail. Actually, you are right. I think you are talking about this experience, right?
Yes.
I'm now sharing the screen. Here, they can use it without touching over the surface.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I mean, getting to the tech switches, I mean, the push buttons to touch screen was something similar to this. I mean, for example, people were just touching a glass, but they don't understand if the feedback is not enough, they try to push it more and more. I believe you face something like this in many cases.
True.
I mean, you have the surface and you press it. If it is not happening, you press more. But it is a glass. Nothing will change if you press more or if you just force it. What we did, for example, we improved the feedback. I mean, when the user touches an area, the visual feedback, the sound feedback, makes the user think that, okay, I pressed the button. Moreover, for example, the vibration, I mean the haptic feedback. It is a touch button, but all we have it in our mobiles right now, right? While, for example, typing something, you have a tiny vibration that makes you feel that, okay, I pressed the button. So, for example, while moving from tactile switches to touch buttons is something like this. And now we have virtual environments, we have holograms, we have like this one, projected interfaces. So the interactivity now has another dimension. I mean, you are not touching something, but there are so many different technologies, for example, at this point. When your finger enters an area, some sound waves creates a vibration on your fingertip, and you feel that there is a surface, for example. So in our example, it's not like that, but we are also looking for those solutions as well. How can we improve this haptic feedback to the user? Making everything digital will take us to somewhere, but also we have our sensors to feed our psychology to feel that. Nowadays, for example, we are just with our products, we are just reducing the physical load of the user, but we are increasing the cognitive load to the user. I mean, what will happen if I press here? Have I been able to press it or not? Is it now working or not? So as designers, we should feed the user, I mean, give feedbacks to the user with all the sensors. I mean, as I said, giving a beep buzzer, for example, when you just get closer to an interface, then, for example, it pops up. Then you see that, okay, I put my hand here, and then it pop up. Then it knows that I am here, my finger is here. This is a feedback, for example. Or when you just do a command, if you just get a beep signal, then you will again understand that, okay, I do the command. So giving feedback is not only touch. We should concentrate all the ways, all the sensors that a user could have, and give the feedback accordingly. That's the trick. I mean, of course, some people do this without touching. Some people touch the surface. It's not only case. Some people said that, oh, it's better that I don't need to touch, because sometimes my hand is messy, so I can just control it without touching the surface. I liked it, for example. We have those comments as well. So it was really interesting to observe all the behaviors while user trying to use such kind of things. I mean, for example, one of the most important thing is, for example, we are all evolving. When a user who hasn't a, let's say, big screen smartphone will act different when they see this kind of interface. I mean, their attitude is totally different compared to a smartphone user, for example. We face this as well. There was an old lady who doesn't use any smartphone, and her attitude was behaviors was totally different.
Yes, I think this new way of controlling the controls can be also well adapted for the hot devices as well. Not touching the screen of an oven, but using it, or using the iron, for example, operating the preferences on it can be a solution. So is this a technology developed by Arçelik, or it was the technology known and adapted?
The technology, I mean,
without touching, not to touch screen.
It is very common actually. I mean, it is like the Kinect in the game industry. For example, you have the cameras, and camera is just detecting your body and gets the commands. It's something like that. There are so many different solutions on that. Infrared sensors, as I said, for example, sound. The sensors working with ultrasound waves. There are so many different technologies, or just image processing with cameras, for example.
Nintendo V, like Nintendo V.
We all look for possible solutions and choose one of them in this example. But for example, while we were thinking about the mass production and having this in a, for example, real environment, we faced some other problems. So now our technical guys are working on how to solve those problems as well. So it's not a very specific technology that we created, but probably we are one of the first that used it for a white good or a kitchen device.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elçin Hocam, for your question. Hanna Hocam?
Yes, thank you. First, thank you for you mentioned about the experience by putting the user habits and needs for the left part and the technology to the right part, and the middle part is related to experience. I thought that the habits is more related with past, and the needs are more related with the now. Technology designers can carry the technology features of technology to the future. And I would like to ask that, what about predicting the user's future needs? What's the role of the designers? And in Arçelik case, does the designers work on the future needs? Maybe after 20 years, after 50 years, what will be needs of the users? And if does, do you do in Arçelik? What's the way of predicting the needs of the users for the future?
Of course, as designers, we are not, for example, today, the project that I am working will be in the market, some of them 6 months, the minimum, and some of them, for example, 2 years later. We are also working on the projects that we will be launching 2 years later, maybe. This means that when that product will be launched, it will be in the market minimum, let's say, 7 to 10 years. So as a designer, my responsibility is to think about 10 years later, 15 years later, and create the products that will be valid and that will be accepted by the users at that time also. So it's our duty, actually, to predict the future. The best way to predict the future is designing it. So we all try to do that. I mean, as designers, we have to create a vision, have a vision for the future, and create our products with that vision and strategy. In Arçelik, yes, of course, as the design department, we are doing some special projects and conceptual studies to, first of all, it starts with understanding the trends, understanding the users today, and then define a problem and create a solution for that problem. I mean, not all of our products or projects are produced. As I show you this concept HOPE example, it's not produced, But as designers, we worked on it and we observe the users. Sometimes they don't like it, maybe. So we just change our direction to another path. But yeah, it is mainly our responsibility to work on this. As I said, if you are a digital designer, for example, you can change the design now and the coder may code it in 2 minutes and then change the icon, for example. But in our case, we have the production processes, and when we create everything and start to sell the product, it's not easy to go back. So before launching it, we have to test it. And if you always ask the user, it is also maybe dangerous, because as designers, as I said, you should have a vision for the future. And if you are driving the idea from the observations and with the data and your observations, then probably it will be successful. But without doing that, probably it will fail in the near future.
Thank you.
Maybe as a continuum of that, I will ask a question, and then as last question, we'll take Mehmet Hoca's words. So what do you think about renting? Because you're producing durable products as Arçelik, and we are told that products should be used at least for 15 or 20 years. And people don't get rid of those, as far as I know, without even before they are broken, not working.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about those rental businesses?
Yeah,
doing something like that, or?
This is something that Arçelik is working on as well. I mean, for example, it started with some of the products as well. For example, water purifiers. Arçelik, at the beginning, I guess Arçelik sold it, but then they moved the business model to rental model. If you want to have an Arçelik water purifier, they come and install it at your home, and you pay monthly, and you use it. So every 6 months, for example, Arçelik service is going and changing the filters, etc. So yes, the habits are changing. I mean, we don't have Netflix before. We were just renting the CDs, but now it is much more accessible. So everything is changing. The business models are changing. New services are evolving. For example, we have a new function, call center button. I mean, when you buy a product, for example, service comes and installs it. But there's a button, call center button. It's a connected product, of course. You connect it to your home network, and you can use it with HomeViz. And when you just approve your phone number, etc., whenever you press that button, in a couple of minutes, the call center is calling you about asking what is the problem, for example. This is not about washing experience, but this is about, it is a part of that washing machine's experience, that it's a part of about the brand's experience. So yeah, these are the things we also worked on, and what could be the next, that's the main question actually.
Okay. As the last question, I think it's meaningful to have it from Mehmet Hoca. Hocam sesiniz olmadı. Mikrofonda bir kapalı değil de yok işareti görüyorum sanki. Böyle, tamam, şimdi oldu.
Okay, thank you very much. A remark by Özgür made me think something different. That he said that it's possible that nowadays it is possible that the new technologies may be rather difficult for the user. Actually, we can also deduce the same thing, that they buy dishwasher for 12 programs but use only 2, because using these 2 is easy and who cares for the rest. So there is this balance between technology and the user's perception or cognition or whatever. And this brought me, took me to another example, that in 1930s, I'm starting by 1930s, which is the start of Cubism, and then pointillism, and then abstract expressionism, and then etc., etc. Once it reached 1940s and 1950s, the argument was, which didn't exist before that time. Now argument was, is art for art's sake or is art for people's sake, or the society's sake? And it still continues. I mean, most of the people do not understand Picasso, so his art is for art's sake. Something like this. So today, perhaps we are actually experiencing a similar case, where is technology for technology's sake, or is it for users' sake? Because technology, they develop technology so that people who develop the technology say that, yes, I can do this, but it is difficult. Or 10 years after, it will be less difficult, but because the cognition of the users will change. It will not take 10 years, but we need this phase. So today, many programs may not be used by the consumers, but shortly they will start using them, and technologies will also make them a bit less technologically challenging.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And with this occasion, I wish to thank Özgür for reaching us and coming to us and making all these very valuable contributions.
Thank you, Hocam.
So it is not a question. I just somehow I thought that yes, it is difficult. For example, I experienced in a it was not a fair, but it was some sort of an exhibition that it is projecting down, and you are using this projected keyboard for the microwave, I think it was. I said, okay, it's good, but why? I can use a normal keyboard anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even I can feel that. You see, my fingers gets near and near and near, and then I move it this way. Will it turn on all the other? So it was just a bit of question marks. It was full of, but of course, once you start using it, it's all right.
Mm-hmm. As you remember, the cone of the technology.
Yes.
The technology, whenever it gets invisible, actually, it is getting more valuable. And all users start to use it, but even maybe not aware of using a technology. For example, we had 3D glasses and TVs with 3D glasses. Okay, it was a hype, and then just we forget about those ones, for example. We also need those things, but what happened? Okay, 3D experience, the content are ready or not, or personal 3D players, etc. They evolved. So while having the technology in our life, probably we will be testers for these technologies every time. Some will be accepted, vital, invisible, but some will be just stop there, or just we will forget about them. As designers, as I said, we should concentrate on the, okay, I will use this technology, or I want to solve this problem, and what technologies can you offer me? For example, we should ask the engineers about this. I want to have a touch surface in this plane, so what can you offer me? They can say that, okay, we can put cameras and track your finger. We can put an infrared sensor, track your finger. We can put etc., different technologies. Then we will talk about, okay, what is the gain and loss about if we use those technologies. So in terms of technology and buying habits, probably we will face many things. There was also another question about, okay, some of the, for example, what was it? Just look again. The examples that we saw today are the same 10 years ago. That's true. That's true. But many things are also changing. But for example, as I said, we will still have some products that we will buy today, use just a small amount of time, and then forget about it. So before the introduction of those products, as designers, we have some responsibility as well. I try to say this. I mean, for some users, we will still have those remote controls with many, many buttons. But understand, for example, if you buy a new TV, then most of the brands are just reducing the number of buttons. Now, for example, Apple TV has only 2 buttons, and but what does it mean? There is a interactive digital interface. You just use it as a mouse or like a trackpad. Yeah. So the combination, it's not only the remote control itself to set the channel or choose the film, movie. So it's the combination between that remote and also the interface that you see on the screen. Unless seeing that interface, that remote is useless, for example. So yeah, I know that some of the examples are really same, but as the responsibility of designer, we have the same responsibilities. The main argument here is understanding that approach. That was my aim, actually. I mean, we have the real situations while designing, while doing a project, while designing. Do not concentrate on only your experiences, only your thoughts. I couldn't talk with people, but I believe that they have this problem, and I created this form to solve this problem. That doesn't work. As a multidisciplinary designer, you have to do the research as well. You have to get that feeling as well. Otherwise, yeah, it doesn't work.
Great ending, I guess. Thank you, Mehmet Hocam. Thank you, Özgür. This is a very literal translation, horizon widening talk for our students and for us also. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was
I hope
really
you enjoyed it. It was Monday. Probably many of us after weekend not that happy, but you were here, many people. I hope you enjoyed, and that will just touch somewhere in your journey. Thank you again for inviting me.
Thank you for coming and talking to us, actually.
Yeah, as a non-product designer, it was also very inspiring for me, and to understand your ways of designing. I had questions, but I think you have enough questions, so I hope I can ask them later. Mr. Öz, many thanks for being with us. As a small remembrance of the day, and as a, let's say, faculty tradition, we donate in our guests' names to a foundation. So we made a donation in your name today to SEI Foundation, which works towards equality in education. So once more, thanks again for your contribution, and we hope to see you again.
It's kind of you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone for being with us. And we hope to see you again in the next episode of ArchiDesign Talks. Good evening.
Bye-bye.
Good evening.